Hi guys, it's Allison McKee, and I'm starting today's Trainers Tip Tuesday from the comfort of my home. It's pretty hot outside. A lot of you know that I had spinal fusion surgery a few weeks ago, so I'm going to talk a little about some training philosophy and some of the terminology that you've heard many of us trainers use over the past month, just to make sure everybody's clear on what it is we're talking about. And I do have some video that I took prior to my surgery with a nice little donkey that I had in for training. But this month we are talking about feet and training a donkey to pick up their feet. This is one of the most dangerous things that we are training our animals to do. It can be particularly dangerous if you are working with a wild donkey or a donkey that has been abused or treated unfairly and has become aggressive. And perhaps not aggressive with all things, but pretty aggressive with their feet. Because they were not handled appropriately. So sometimes when you get one like that, your work's a little harder and it's definitely more dangerous. So when we do get to the videos, you will see me using tools. And even though this was quite a nice little donkey, she did need work with her feet. She wasn't particularly nasty or anything, but I wanted to show the methods that I would use if I was working with something that was wild or aggressive. I do want to say that when you take ownership of a donkey, it becomes your responsibility to make sure that that animal is safe to handle for the farrier and your vet. It is really easy to get caught up in the blame game and blame the previous owner or perhaps the tip trainer, but it is your animal and it is your responsibility. If you are unable to train your animal to be safe to handle, then hire a trainer and make sure that it happens, because your farrier and your vet are counting on you and their life depends on it. That being said, my primary goal for the first farrier visit for a new animal isn't necessarily to have that animal's feet trimmed. The goal is for the farrier to go home to his family unscathed. So sometimes that means that the trim doesn't happen. And it's very important to do your work and hope for the best experience for that first trim. But if your animal just simply isn't ready, don't push it and don't put your farrier at risk. Sometimes we need to bring in the vet and get medications to sedate the animal to make it safe to be trimmed if the animal's in a situation where the trim needs to happen before the training can take place, or before the training is far enough along to do the trim safely. So never put your farrier at risk. Their life is not worth it. Do your due diligence, and if that first trim doesn't go well, maybe you have some positive things. Maybe you get the fronts done, or maybe the farrier is able to pick up all 4 feet and hit it with a rasp a little bit. Those are positives, and you're just going to keep working and progressing so that the next time that they come out, that hopefully you're going to get that trim. And like I said, do not hesitate to get the vet involved and bring in sedation if the trim needs to happen before the animal is mentally ready to do so. I do want to go over some terminology that you've heard a lot of trainers use over the past month. And I'm going to go briefly over operant conditioning, and that is a philosophy of behavior modification. And there are 4 aspects to that: positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. And you will mainly hear trainers talk about positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. And positive reinforcement is when you add something, say a food reward, a cookie, or horse treat, to encourage a behavior. So when an animal does a behavior that we want to encourage, then we're going to reward them and give them a cookie. That's positive reinforcement. Negative reinforcement is taking away something. That's your negative when you want a behavior repeated. So when we talk about donkeys, we talk about pressure and release. So if we're training for a particular behavior, when the animal does the behavior correctly, we release the pressure. That is taking away the pressure. That's your negative reinforcement. And then we have the punishments, positive and negative. I'm going to go over negative punishment first, and that is something that I do not use, and I don't know of any trainer that really uses it. I don't believe that animals learn by this method, and negative punishment is taking away something to discourage a behavior. So let's say in the instance with my children, I may say, hey, knock this off, whatever the behavior is, or you're not going to get ice cream after supper. It doesn't really work in the equine world. If you're a trainer and you can tell me how it works and give me an example, I'm totally open to it, but it's something that I don't use, and I don't think it's something that's effective in equine donkeys or horses. And then let's talk about positive punishment. Positive punishment is adding something to discourage a behavior, and you are adding something that is unpleasant. It could be simply yelling at or spanking. So if an animal is doing a behavior that is wrong, you go, eh. Why do all animals know that? Eh? Even my kids know it. So you can make a noise, and that kind of gets their attention, and they're like, oh, I'm not supposed to do that. In regards to training to pick up their feet, if an animal kicks at me, they're going to get a and they're going to get a spanking. And sorry, guys, I just said it. Anyways, yeah, they're going to get a spanking. I'm going to use some positive punishment, and I'm going to tell them, knock it off. And that's how I'm going to tell them. And the reason why I use positive punishment, and you won't hear trainers talk about this because it's not the pleasant side of training, but I use it because, number one, it works. And the reason why it works is because it is all, and I wrote this down. It's part of natural horsemanship or natural donkmanship, which is the philosophy of working with a donkey based on their natural instincts and methods of communication. And if you've seen donkeys or horses in a herd situation, they use positive punishment to communicate with one another. They communicate in this way already. So I find that it is incredibly effective because they already know about positive punishment from living in herd. If you don't want to use that method, don't use it. I feel that it is a part of natural horsemanship and one that's seldom talked about. It is incredibly effective, and you can get through to an animal that kicking is not the answer. And I'm not talking about we're going to flog this animal half to death. It can be a quick whack, wrong answer. And that's something that I often say when I'm training. I will literally say that to them. Wrong answer. in a really terse manner to get their attention. And honestly, it just flat out works. It's how they communicate with one another, and it is one way that I know how to speak donkey. To go a little further on that with positive punishment, I reserve positive punishment as a training method when the animal is doing something that is going to cause me bodily harm or death. Kicking, biting, striking. One of my animals was a gate shover, and so I used positive punishment with gate shoving because on day 2 of her living with me, she caught my hand in a gate, and we quit doing that right away. So if I'm going to get hurt, that's when I step in with positive punishment. And I really believe that using positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and positive punishment when appropriate will yield you a wonderfully trained animal that you are going to enjoy. When I get to the videos, you will see that I am using tools, and I'm going to show you how I use them. And the tools are to keep me safe while I'm going through this training process. I tell people that I cannot help these animals or train them if I am injured or dead. That's the bottom line. So tools that keep me at a safe distance while I get these animals desensitized to having their legs and their feet touched, and holding their legs up is really important. Sometimes you get lucky and you don't have to use the tools. Donkeys are really quite agreeable, but sometimes you need your tools. Sometimes even with well-behaved animals, I will go through the process and use my tools because it's not just desensitizing to having their legs and feet handled and picked up. It can also desensitize and help in instances where there's an accident, if your animal somehow gets tied up in, tangled up in ropes, or heaven forbid, barbed wire, that they learn to stand quietly with things wrapped around their legs. So part of this training that you'll see, yes, I'm getting them ready for the farrier, but I also am kind of teaching them, hey, we can have stuff wrapped around our legs and not panic about it. It can save your animal's life if you get in a bad wreck. Say if you're packing, or, heaven forbid, the animal gets loose and runs through barbed wire or something silly like that. So it kind of has twofold with using the tools that I use. Okay, I'm gonna finally quit prattling on about stuff that maybe you don't care about and get on with the videos that I took. And like I said, I do use positive punishment when I'm training to pick up feet. You will not see any positive punishment in these videos. And that is simply because this animal did not need it. And I'm certainly not gonna use positive punishment to show how I would use it. That would be really unfair. Anyways, if at any point this animal threw a kick at me, then I would use my tool, give a quick whack, a no, wrong answer, and then move on. Don't linger on it. Just be like, wrong answer, and then get right back to work.
I'm here with Stormy from Forever Home Donkey Rescue and Sanctuary. She is an adoptable donkey, and I'm going to show you how I work on picking up feet.
I like to make sure that I can touch the animal all over before I start to pick up their feet. So I'll use a tool, like I'm going to use a lunge whip right now. I also use a brush on a stick, which is just a grooming
much tied to any kind of handle, say a broken broom handle, but I like the lunge whip a lot. So I want to make sure I can touch the insides and the outsides of both legs in the front and also in the back. And then I also go ahead and I fling that lunge whip and just go around. Oops, sorry, Stormy. I hit her in the nose with the end of it. I just kind of go around the legs and make sure that she's okay with that. And you can see that she is okay with it. Okay, I'm going to show you with this whip again. There we go. Got a good wrap around those. She's standing quietly. And then what I like to do is I'll go ahead and use this lunge whip and I'll put it around a foot and then I'll ask her to give. And I like to do this before I just reach down because sometimes the wild ones will pop you in the head with their back leg when you're picking up the front. You taking a good poop? But just to know how she's going to react, I'll wait till she's done with her poopsies. Give. Give. Go. And if she just barely gets her foot up, that's fine. I'm just asking for that. Really good. Good girl. So that's how I do that with a lunge whip. I really love the lunge whip. I know that the rope is a little harsh, but I would never tie her up with it. I'm just going to use my hand pressure. But I can, especially with a really reactive donkey, typically, if she would move her legs apart. There you go, girlfriend. Get that through and around. And I'm going to bring it out with my foot. So I am just doing this to keep myself at a safe distance all the time. And then I'm going to stand up at her shoulder and ask for that foot. Good girl. So this just allows me. Good girl. Good. I can be up at her head or her neck. I can flip that around her back leg. That's so good. Very nice taking treats today, too. I'm all about being safe, especially with a really reactive donkey. And this is so long, I can really use it and keep myself safe if she decides to throw a kick. So Stormy's really pretty good about her feet. She needs work with her behind end. But I have had some BLM burros that would really want to take your head off when you first start them. So I think this is pretty non-traditional for somebody to use a lunge whip in this manner. But like I said, I can be at their head. I can get this around the leg because of the stick part. Bring it over. Use my foot in a safe distance before I pick it up. And then just ask for that foot. Good girl. Good job. So that's how I do it with the fronts and backs to start. Then once your animal is comfortable with you doing that with the string, and you can use a cotton rope if you're handy and you can get that flung around there. I'm not real good at a rope. I'm going to be honest about that. But once they're totally comfortable with that, then you're going to ask, you're going to start asking with your hands. And then if they get flinchy, you're going to approach and retreat. So if I go to pick up that back leg and she gets reacted, I would approach and retreat. So I would just go down to where she was comfortable. When she started getting flinchy, I'd go back up. Go down, up until you can touch the whole leg with your hand, then ask for the give. Hopefully that makes sense. I am going to say that if you have an animal that can't stand to be tied yet, you can get started on their hooves, and I will just hold the lead and kind of follow with them. But I do like to get them tying right away because I'm working by myself most of the time, and it's just easier if they tie for me to be able to um, start working on feet. And like I said, she's really good. She's been really jerky with her hinds, and she's really improving on that. So you're doing great, aren't you? Yeah, you're a good girl. So I'm just gonna grab here, ask for the give, and I'll use the word give, or sometimes I'll just cluck at them. And then once they're comfortable with you picking up their feet, then you're gonna move on to start using your hoof pick. So when I'm training for anything, just do little short lessons at a time and give them plenty of breaks to think about things and let stuff soak into those tiny little brains. But like I said, she's quite good. So my thing is, first I use a rope, then I start using my hand, and then I start using the tools. And being able to hold the foot up for longer periods of times to get them ready for the farrier. So that's about it. And I do give cookies when they're good, when they're learning this. Just a positive reward goes a long ways with these guys. Sweet babies. Okay, I'm gonna show you guys something that I do with animals that are pretty unruly with their hind end, and it's called tying a Scotch hobble. I've never done this with her. I don't know how she's going to react, so let's go. First, you do have to desensitize to ropes. So don't just go throwing ropes, especially on a wild donkey, and think you're going to get this done. Desensitize them to the rope first. You're going to tie around the neck. And I'm using a long lunge line. It is cotton. You want to use cotton for this. Do not use any kind of nylon rope. You do not want to rope burn them. And then if they're really reactive, you're going to throw between their legs. She'll move her legs. There we go. So you'll just toss it. You can use a tool, your foot, whatever you have to get that. And put that around. I put one little twist in there. And then you're going to practice this just like I did with the lunge whip. And we're going to ask for that foot. Get. Good. And let her have it back. And good. Good girl. Now when I go ahead and I'm going to tie this to her neck, and I always tie it so they can put some weight on that foot. I'm not making her completely three-legged. And I'm going to do a quick release on that. So that See, she can still move, which is what I want, but it's gonna restrict her from throwing big kicks. So this is really good. Have you had this done before? But then I can come down here and I can ask for that foot with the rope. And if she really gets to kicking, it's going to keep her from kicking straight out back and somewhat to the side too. And then if she really wants to have a fit, I'm just going to stand back and let her fight with herself over her leg. And then when I need to, I just pull that quick release. But it's really easy. Don't get the wiggles. Like I said, I don't know if anybody's done this with her before, but you just pull. I don't. Hopefully our video's okay. Now she's gonna have a little fit. Cool. Just relax. When she relaxes, I'll let her have that foot back, but she's not gonna. There. There. Good. So she wants to fight a little bit. I'm gonna let her, even when I'm holding it. So this is her thing. She likes to try to push you over. Relax. Relax. Good. And then I would practice like this before I tied her up. And I'm only going to tie her up when I actually go to work on that foot. And like I said, I'm going to go quick release. So if we get in a train wreck, I can just pull that and release her leg right away. So that's a Scotch hobble. Not the prettiest. She's going to untie herself.